This is the RAD Position with ASRT CEO and Executive Director Melissa Pergola. A podcast for medical imaging and radiation therapy professionals. Bayer in Radiology is here to help boost efficiency in your imaging workflow. With access to advanced connected software and service features through Cortenic connectivity, the MedRad, Stellent, Flex, and Centargo CT injection systems power workflows to help you optimize operations and patient care. Find the right CT injector for your suite's needs at go.bayer.com/CT solutions. Hey everyone, welcome back to the RAD Position podcast. I'm your host, ASRT CEO Melissa Pergola, and I'm here with
her podcast partner, Ray Arambula.
And we are so honored tonight to have a distinguished guest, and that is Dr. Dana Smetherman from the ACR.
And I hear she is the first female CEO.
Yes, so it took them 100 years, but then I was chosen to be the CEO and started just a little over a year ago.
How exciting.
Dr. Dana Smetherman is the Chief Executive Officer at the American College of Radiology. She is a diagnostic radiologist who spent her career at Ochsner Health and specialized in breast imaging. Dr. Smetherman previously served as the chair of the Department of Radiology and Associate Medical Director for the medical specialists at Ochsner Medical Center in New Orleans. Before becoming ACR CEO in July of 2024, Dr. Smetherman held multiple other leadership positions in national and regional medical organizations, including Secretary-Treasurer, member of the Board of Chancellors, and chair of the Breast Commission for the ACR, president of the Radiological Society of Louisiana, ACR counselor from Louisiana, board member for the National Accrediting Program of Breast Centers, chair of the Technical Exhibits Committee of the Radiological Society of North America, advisor to the current procedural terminology panel of the American Medical Association, and as a director of the board of directors of Ochsner Health. That's a lot, Dr. Smetherman. Dr. Smetherman has given numerous presentations and has multiple publications in the areas of breast imaging and healthcare economics. Thank you for coming on with us.
Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
So the first question that I have is, how would you describe the relationship between radiologists and radiologic technologists today?
First of all, I would say, and this was absolutely true throughout my career, that the collaboration of radiologic technologists and radiologists is absolutely fundamental to operate a safe, high-quality radiology department that is patient-centered. And so I think really maintaining that relationship is completely key to the success of radiology departments and patient care. But I think we also have to realize that things have changed over the course of certainly my career. You know, when I started out as a resident, we were physically much closer to each other. Departments were smaller. Technologists might be doing images and obtaining images in a radiography room, but then they would come out with those film cassettes and put them through the little door and wait for the images to come out. And then they'd look at them at view boxes in the hall. And the radiologists were also physically on site and moving through all of those departments and parts of the radiology department. And so it was a lot easier, right? And so although that technology has caused a lot of really positive changes for patient care and all of those things, no matter how you slice it, we have all become physically more spread out. And whether it's because we have equipment that's co-located now in outpatient clinics or in CT scanners and MRs in the emergency department, but we're just not physically next to each other. And the technologists, since they no longer have to run those films, they're at the scanners, they're using the equipment. The radiologists are in the reading room. So, I think it will never be as easy as it was to maintain that really close relationship in this modern world in which we find themselves. But I think we just have to work at it, right? And you have to
Yeah.
recognize it, and you have to be really intentional about how you communicate. I would also just kudos to you, Melissa, and your colleagues, because I think at the institutional level, you have done a great job of trying to maintain those relationships between the organizations, and that collaboration has been really tremendous. And I've certainly appreciated it even in my small time in this role. So I think at every level, we're really trying to make sure that we're all working together effectively.
Yeah, well, thank you for that, and it's wonderful to have you as a partner. I grew up in the same time, so, I used to sit in the department and hang films for my radiologist, and it was a very important relationship. I mean, that's where I learned more about pathology, and, it was just such a wonderful thing to be in the same physical space, and like you said, it made it very clear to us how important we were to each other and to build those relationships, and I agree with you, it's one of the reasons I'm so excited to have you on because our technologists and therapists that don't get to see their radiologists and radiation oncologists as much, they to help them understand how important it is that we all continue to work together to maintain those connections that, as you said, are required for safe quality care.
And I think, the technologists are often the ones directly interfacing with the patient in a lot of
Yes.
the diagnostic work. And so again, technology can be our friend there too. We have to really seek out the ways we can use digital technology and texting and back and forth. But you can't just let that happen, right? It's
Mhm.
got to be, I think, very intentional and very strategic, and really
Yes.
trying to figure out, okay, this is how the world works now. How do we make sure that that relationship, that communication is still strong?
How would you describe initiatives that ACR has pursued to enhance collaborations with organizations like ours?
Right, well, I think we talked about it a little bit. We certainly try to take advantage of those meetings when we are all there together, whether it's
Yeah.
at our ACR meeting or the RSNA meeting, and try to make sure that we're taking advantage of that, meeting face to face, coming up with
Yes.
shared agendas, sharing information. I was fortunate enough in the course of my career to spend 5 years on an ARRT exam committee,
Yes.
and that's one of the things that we still do as the ACR is we have the privilege of being able to appoint our members onto some of those committees and also being on the board of the ARRT. So I think, not just the ASRT, but the other technologist organizations, we have some really, I think, beneficial opportunities to be able to continue to build those relationships.
Yes, yes, I agree, and to partner at that level, right, where you have a seat at the table and we're working together on standards and exams and that significant need.
So, Dina, you mentioned a little while ago about being intentional and strategic when it comes to technology and digital areas. What role do you think technologists play in the future of radiology, especially as imaging becomes more complex and
Mm.
even AI driven?
So the question of where AI and how AI is going to be integrated into healthcare is certainly a very hot topic. I was
Yes.
actually at the Florida Radiological Society meeting this weekend, and there was a fantastic talk about what does the workplace of the future
Mm.
look like. Um, I do think AI is going to make us more efficient.
Mhm.
I think that it's going to help our workflow, but it is going to change things. So just like, the physical distance and remote technology and radiologists interpreting studies remotely has fundamentally changed how we work and interact. I think we're going to
Mhm.
see similar things. Now, I do think there will be quite a few positives. We are all, both on the technologist side and the physician side, quite well aware of the workforce shortages. We live this
Right.
every day. So if there are ways for this to make us more efficient, hopefully that'll have positive benefits. And I think we have to embrace it. I don't think, and this came through in this talk, they had a picture of an ostrich with its head in the sand. I don't think
Uh-huh.
that's an option.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think we have to really push ourselves to learn more about it. I
Yes.
also think radiologists and radiologic technologists, because what we do is so dependent on technology and with that long
Mhm.
history, we're also in a really good position to be leaders in this space because we
Mhm.
know it's not perfect. We know it's not
Right.
infallible. And, I think that we have to be there to remind and teach our other colleagues about that fallibility and how when it is implemented in a department, in an organization, you've really got to be able to monitor that after you use it because it may not work the way that it worked in the test sites, right? So I do think, and again, we got to communicate, and all
Yes.
learn together, and try not to feel threatened or intimidated or
Mhm.
unsure, even though that is kind of your natural reaction at times.
Let's switch gears a little bit and go move over to the advocacy side. What do you think are, or what might be ACR's current priorities in advocacy, both at the federal and the state levels?
As we've talked about with the workforce shortage, we were optimistic that the PAMA legislation would get implemented,
Yeah.
but that, of course, has not happened. So we do have a new piece of legislation that we have partnered with two senators that we have actually introduced, and that's called the Root Act, ROOT.
Mhm.
And again, this is basically as many of the same things we were hoping to achieve with PAMA, which was to reduce unnecessary imaging and radiation. But it also tries to address some of those challenges that we saw with the implementation of the original PAMA legislation. So hopefully it'll make it easier to implement and we can finally get that done. And I will say that, originally when we talked about PAMA, I always thought about the impact on patients and making
Mm.
sure that they were getting the studies that they need and not additional studies that they didn't need. However, it has turned out that as we've seen the workforce shortage become more and more of an issue, to me, it really is a workforce initiative more than anything else because we don't have enough people, technologists, radiologists, to do the work of
Yeah.
that needs to be done, much less
Right.
work that's unnecessary.
Yeah. So, can you tell our listeners what PAMA stands for? They might not be familiar with the PAMA legislation.
Right. So it is the Protecting Access to Medicare Act.
Mm.
And it was originally designed to make sure that patients were getting the advanced imaging that they needed, but not advanced imaging studies, CT scans, MRIs that they actually did not need, that weren't
Right.
going to have any value in their care. And we understand that, and you guys do too.
Mhm.
Healthcare is complicated. Things change. If it's not an area that you're really familiar with, or if you're a primary care doctor who has to cover so many different kinds of illnesses, you may not know off the top of your head what is
Mm.
the right imaging exam in every situation. And so, the nice thing about the way that it was intended was it was also going to educate people.
Right.
A
Right.
couple of other legislative priorities for us, I think the NIH cuts are
Mm.
a big concern.
Yeah.
That's really more being played out in the courts right now, and there are court cases. But of course, we have so many of our members who are in university practices who
Mm.
are doing all of that really important research. And so that
Yes.
certainly is another advocacy priority for us. And you guys mentioned the state level. It is interesting.
Yes.
There's a lot of legislation that's happening at the state level right now. Scope of practice bills,
Mhm.
AI legislation, a lot of the payment policy for things like high risk breast cancer screening,
Mhm.
getting that paid out of pockets for patients. So a lot of things going there, and then even tariffs.
Yes.
We are doing advocacy to try to get exemptions for pharmaceuticals, but in
Mhm.
particular those radiopharmaceuticals
Yep.
that are used so much in both diagnostic and therapeutic radiology services. As I know you guys are, we're out there every day advocating on the federal and the state level for our members and for patients.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that our government relations teams talk and that we have worked together on some issues. And I think it's important for our technologists to understand that while some of the issues they may feel like it doesn't impact them directly and may wonder why we do calls to action, that we are all tied together and it does impact us, as you mentioned, with workforce and even some of the encroachment. A lot of times we are called out, both of us in bills where there's encroachment because it is order, supervise, interpret, right, perform. So it's really important that we continue to work together. So do you have any suggestions for technologists and therapists about how they might work alongside their radiologists on some of these issues?
We have absolutely, as you know, we have absolutely done that and have certainly
Yes.
appreciated the support of our technologist colleagues in some of these calls to action. I think just like in the ACR, working through your state chapters and making
Mhm.
sure that, the ASRT, the ACR, that we have those really good
Yes.
communications with our colleagues who are throughout the country, making sure that they're connected to one another, I think is really important.
Yeah.
I would have to say, particularly in some of those scope of practice legislation that has come across, it has really been tremendously helpful to have the support of our technologist colleagues. I would say, who knows what radiologists do better than technologists? And
Mhm.
just as, for us, we know what your skills, your expertise, your
Mhm.
training, how that benefits the patient, how that lets us to have better imaging studies, safer imaging studies. The same thing is true for us. You know what we do, and understand that all of those years that we spend training and all of that education,
Right.
and again, keeping up with the latest things and how there's just significantly less and sometimes almost no formal training for things like interpretation
Right.
in some non-physician provider programs. So yes, I think there are plenty of opportunities. As I said, there's a lot going on in the advocacy space, and I
Yes.
really do think too, we are stronger together. Radiology is not a big specialty if you look across the
Right.
house of medicine. So working together, being able to have a kind of a stronger voice, I think is also very powerful.
Yeah, I think you said something really important, and that is that at the state level, taking the time to reach across the lines, across our radiology service line, I think that this is almost a call to action for our affiliates. If you haven't reached out to and started to form a relationship with the Radiological Society in your state, you should definitely do that. So that's my call to action for this episode.
Well, I think that sounds fantastic, and I will make a similar call to our radiologist colleagues because they should be doing the same.
Yes. So now I want to sort of stay in advocacy and scope of practice, but shift gears a little bit. We were just at ACR and the ACR annual conference, and there were two resolutions passed in relation to the radiologist assistant. So, can you tell our listeners sort of where ACR is with your current position on the radiologist assistant?
Yes, I really appreciate you asking about that, Melissa. So, as you know, because you were there, the ACR is has kind of a unique structure among
Yes.
radiology societies, and we actually have a legislative branch, our
Hmm.
council, which follows a democratic process. And so, at
Yes.
this year's meeting, they voted and basically expressed their support and put out a joint statement on the registered radiologist assistant role and responsibilities. There was a lot of emphasis on clear roles,
Hmm.
shared goals, effective communication, team
Yes.
based care. Technologists and radiologist assistants and radiologists all being on one team that
Hmm.
is led by the radiologist physician. So, and again, our position on things is a function and basically the result of that democratic process, which since you were there, you got to actually see in action.
Yes, and it's quite similar. We have a House of Delegates, which is similar to your council, and it's my understanding that a lot of associations don't have that democratic large governance body like the two of us have in our organizations. We just had our annual conference and went through the same governance process with our annual governance and House of Delegates. But it was wonderful to be there and hear all of the support at the microphone for the respect for the radiologist assistant role. And of course, we are committed to holding the tenets, which are that we will always work for a radiologist-led team only under the direct supervision of a radiologist, that we will not independently bill, and that we will not interpret images. And so we, of course, will always hold those tenets. And we're hoping now that we will get market introduced and that we can go ahead and get the reimbursement issue settled so that the RA role can really flourish.
So lots of work around advocacy, lots of
Yes.
big topics, lots of movement. Another big topic that we are seeing is increasing burnout and
Yes.
staffing shortages across healthcare. How is ACR addressing these issues in radiology?
Right. So these are really important issues. And I do think, the ROOT Act that we talk about, if we can reduce unnecessary imaging, that's one
Yes.
thing. We have also really supported our various different members and chapters in their efforts to expand residencies. We also try to provide resources if a lot of people don't realize that Medicare and CMS actually pay for radiology residents, but they'll only pay for a certain number. And so sometimes in order to increase those residencies, you have to self-fund them, meaning the hospital or the residency program or the university has to pay for them themselves. So we work to provide resources so that they can go and do that. I do think ultimately recognizing that this problem exists, supporting radiologists if they need to start working an alternative schedule or flexible schedules or part-time. So, all of those different things. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be a nice, easy solution if you think about just the continuing volume of patients and the volume of imaging studies. So I think that and the workforce, it's going to have to be a multi-pronged approach that's going to involve a lot of different things. But I really appreciate you bringing that up because I'm sure it's the case throughout all healthcare workers, right? They've been through a really tough time with the pandemic, and now coming out of it, the work can just feel overwhelming at times.
Yeah, this definitely sounds like a multi-layer challenge.
Yeah.
And so I guess to your point, there probably isn't a long-term one approach solution. It's a multi-approach solution to this.
Absolutely.
So, how can technologists and radiologists work together to improve working conditions and patient outcomes? Are there short term things that we could be doing together now?
It's interesting that you bring that up because I actually gave a talk about a year ago about exactly this. What could you do today?
Yes.
And one of those things kind of really did revolve around communication and the idea that it was a very tightly scoped talk, but it was about what happens with interruptions. And interruptions are one of those things that they can both make you less productive and decrease your quality. Some think
Right.
there's a trade-off between the two. So redesigning our workspaces, some of the models that have been effective are sort of having sometimes it is a non-physician who's kind of in that air traffic control role, who's communicating back and forth and sometimes putting some of the radiologists in what they call a sterile cockpit situation where there are fewer
Neat.
interruptions, but then you designate somebody, maybe it's a radiologist of the day, maybe it's other medical personnel
Yeah.
who gets those calls about how do I protocol this study, or this
Yes.
patient has a a contrast reaction that wasn't that they didn't disclose until they got here, or didn't get caught. Oh, this referring provider put this indication, but it looks like there's
Mm.
something else going on, and we know that these things happen. So finding ways to be as efficient, leveraging those tools where you might be able to have asynchronous communication, but maybe
Yes.
dividing up the tasks. So, it's hard to come up with solutions that you could implement immediately. But my
Mhm.
charge when I put together that lecture is, what could somebody do if they walked out tomorrow, and put in their practice? And that was one idea. There are other ideas to try to look at if you kind of spread work across multiple practices or even multiple states. Can you have these kind of on demand, almost Uber models where, oh, there's a
Mm.
radiologist with some capacity, let's move the work over to that
Yes.
person? I think that's possible. But again, I think be open to what the technological solutions might be.
Mhm.
Will it ever be as easy as, knocking on that reading room door or coming in? It won't, but that doesn't
Right.
mean we can't accomplish what we need to accomplish. And primarily that's making sure the patient's safe,
Mhm.
making sure the right exam is being performed, making sure that the quality is good, making sure that we all know what's going on. So not easy, but I think it's a great question. And some of these solutions, as we talked about, they're going to be very long term. It takes several years to train, whether it's new technologists, new
Yeah.
radiologists. Although I do love the idea of kind of marketing. Hey, are you really excited by AI? This could be a good
Yes.
field for you. But there are some things that we can do even quickly or today, and
Yeah.
we probably have to do them all.
Yeah, so I'm wondering that sort of traffic control person you mentioned. I wonder if that's a role for the radiologist assistant.
It really could
Mm.
be because they'll have a
Mhm.
lot of the knowledge that you would need to have, right?
Yes.
I mean, they know what are the right exams.
Yes.
They certainly know the clinical challenges that there could
Yeah.
be and kind of back. Yes, I mean, absolutely, that would be a role. And again,
Yeah.
it's just it's a way of dividing up the work
Right.
so that you can have one person be kind of uninterrupted, not have their
Right.
productivity decreased, and then but that work is still important. That communication is still important. In some
Yes.
ways, it's among the most important things that we do as a radiology department, right? That
Right.
interface between our referring providers, and the patients, and all of those things.
Mhm.
So yeah, no, absolutely. I think that would be a great role. I think we'd have to be careful. I think it would be difficult for somebody to do that every day. So maybe that could
Right.
be one assignment because you can envision, there are studies that show like how many times an hour a resident who's working maybe the emergency radiology
Yes.
rotation gets interrupted, and it's not a small number.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
that might contribute to burnout if that was all of your job. So hopefully we'd break it up, but they would definitely have the skills to be able to do that.
Well, you've talked about a lot of current trends, but
Yes.
things that we can maybe look ahead to. Very excited to hear you talk about those things. But I guess overall, what would you say is your vision for the future of radiology and maybe the next 5 to 10 years?
So, I have thought about this a lot. And despite all of the challenges with reimbursement, the challenges with the workforce shortage and burnout, I think we also have to realize that we are very much on the cusp of a really exciting golden era in imaging. If you think about it, radiology as a field has only been around for 130 years. We are a
Mhm.
really young specialty.
Yes.
If you think about, medicine that's been going on for millennia,
True.
even
Yes.
surgery that's been going
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
for centuries,
Yes.
we're a relatively young specialty and we're still evolving very fast. And so I think there are some really exciting technological advances that are going to come about in the next few years. I think theranostics is one.
Mhm.
I
Yes.
had the opportunity to go to the Society of Nuclear Medicine and Molecular Imaging meeting
Yes.
earlier this month. Really enjoyed that and just hear about the potential for
Mhm.
that. I think, it's just, I mean, some of the talks were saying that the volume could increase tenfold, but you also think about, oh my gosh, that's 10 times as many patients that could benefit from that. I
Right.
also think, as I think about the history there, I think we forget how revolutionary and almost unbelievable it probably was to be able to look inside a human
Mhm.
body without having to
Yes.
physically cut it open.
Yes.
And that has opened the door to so many things on the screening side, early detection of disease, seeing things that are going on inside your body before they become an actual symptom or something you can feel or experience. Um, and so the potential impact of imaging in early detection of disease, I think, can't be underestimated. And I think the only thing that's holding us back from exploding in that sphere is simply that we don't have enough people to do all of that work. But if you think about things like lung cancer screening, what tremendous potential there is to do good there. So I think that our role in population health could be enormous. I also think if you think about things like what they call opportunistic screening, which is, somebody has a mammogram and we're looking to detect breast cancer, but wow, they've got a lot of vascular calcifications. Could they be at risk of having a heart attack, and you're picking up on their mammogram? Someone has a CT of the chest, abdomen, pelvis for right lower quadrant pain, and you're able to detect that they've got serious osteoporosis. So again, some of these things that now can be detected at a whole different level, the amount of information that's in those imaging studies that we perform and interpret could dwarf what's even in the electronic health record today. So, I think there are so many opportunities, and that's why I think we all have to work together to be able to get the volume manageable for the number of people to do it with that multifactorial solution. Because, I just think we could be in such an exciting place in really just a few years. None of those things that I talked about are some, long term, a century from now. I mean, these things are, almost right here. As we've said all along, it's going to require all of us working together to really make that future as available as we can for our patients.
Yeah, and I think another thing that you said that's so important, you talked about that ostrich with the head in the sand, right? There are so many exciting things coming, and we can't let fear keep us from leading that exciting new future. And that's where we have to be. We have to be at the intersection of excitement about the future and not let that fear pull us back. And I think that's what we're going to do so well together as a radiologist-led team, is all moving this into the next century, which will benefit all of us, current patients, and we're all going to be patients.
Like it or not, we are all patients at some point in time. Yes.
Okay, so if you could send one message to all radiologic technologists listening today, what would it be?
Okay, well, I might do two. The first one is something that we say at the ACR all the time, which is focused forward together. And then the other, and it comes back to this, we are all valued members of this team of professionals dedicated to doing the best that we can every day for patients. And so my second message would be communicate, communicate, communicate.
I love that.
All right, so now it is time for, I don't know what we're going to call it, racing. It's not actually a game.
It's not really
today.
a game. It's more of future-based questions.
Okay.
Imaging in 2035 will be.
Better. It's the word I came up with.
She wins. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
you win. I agree. Better.
Yeah.
Definitely be better.
Yeah, that's a
More
good.
precise, safer.
All of it, right.
All of
Less
it.
radiation, safer,
There we go.
less painful for patients. I mean, I was a breast radiologist. Yeah, that'd be good.
RT jobs in 2035 will be.
Abundant.
Interesting.
Ah, I like your answer better. You get that too.
Those are both good keywords. Patients in 2035 will expect.
Earlier diagnosis.
Better health.
We have a keyword here. It's just better.
Better.
All around. Everything
I
is better.
love that.
Yeah.
Think about the history, the last 130 years. It's gotten better at every
That's true.
step along the way.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll just keep getting better.
Oh, all right. Well, Dr. Smetherman, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on. And I just feel so honored to have you as a colleague and to be able to continue to move the radiologist-led team forward. And as you said, ACR's slogan is
Focused forward together.
yes, yes. We'll be right back after this short message. Behind every scan and treatment is a team of healthcare heroes. The ASRT B.RAD Award honors institutions where medical imaging and radiation therapy professionals lead with purpose and excellence. Nominate your hospital, clinic, or imaging center and spotlight your team's impact. Applications are open through September 30th, 2025 at asrt.org/B.RAD Award.
What a great episode.
Yeah.
It was so great to hear from Dana.
Yeah, it was inspiring.
Yes, great conversation. But now it's time to transition.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
To what?
We See You segment.
We See You segment. I love it. So don't forget, right, that you can write in at radposition@asrt.org, or you can go ahead and leave a message on our website, right?
Yes, you can submit that through asrt.org/radposition.
All right. Well, let's check this one out.
I'm Kristen Beinstroth, and I love the podcast. I would love to know, Dr. Pergola, what is your most meaningful or impactful patient interaction that you've had in your professional career?
Wow, what a great question.
That's a big question, right? I'm sure there's many.
So many. Wow. I think I would say I had worked at Duke University Medical Center after I finished my radiography training, and I worked weekends there while I was going back to school for my degree. And I had a young patient who had a chronic illness that used to come in quite often, and he wasn't really verbal. He wasn't fully nonverbal, but he didn't speak a whole lot. And I got to see him weekend after weekend for a while, and I'm probably going to get upset because those who know me, I'll like drop a tear in the drop of a hat. But one time I came in and his parents had always said, "This is Melissa." And I came in one time and he actually got excited and he said my name.
Oh, wow.
And wow, thanks for asking me that and making me get all upset. But I think for me as a medical imaging professional, I know that my technical competence is important, but those interactions and those connections with patients are so significant in what we do. So thank you for that question. I had not thought about that in quite a long time.
Well, I can speak from the patient perspective. I recently had a back injury and had to have some x-rays taken.
Yeah.
And the technologist was so kind and so patient, and we got to chatting about her job. And without me telling her my role here at ASRT, I asked her if she was a member of ASRT, and her response was, "Oh, absolutely." And she made this statement that I'll never forget.
What?
She said, "This is not a job, it's a profession."
Wow.
And I thought, wow, like that pride and commitment that she has, like that just reminded me and made me more aware of what a great profession we serve and support.
Yes.
So from a patient perspective, I truly appreciate, and that had a meaningful impact on my life.
Yeah, I love that, Ray. Thank you for that.
And now it's time for some updates.
Oh.
And so you know what we say around here, don't put yourself in a bad position.
Stay up to date with the RAD position.
That's right. Registration is open for the ASRT Radiation Therapy Conference, taking place from September 28th through September 30th in San Francisco. The ASRT Radiation Therapy Conference is an international gathering of radiation therapists, medical dosimetrists, and radiation oncology experts who are at the forefront of propelling innovation and shaping the future of the profession. Earn continuing education credits, learn from experts in radiation oncology, and embark on a journey of exploration at the ASRT Exhibit Hall. The Radiation Therapy Conference is your go-to destination to network with colleagues, win great prizes, and explore innovative solutions that enhance your impact on patient care. Register now. Visit asrt.org/RTC to register and learn more about the conference.
So we want to take a minute to thank you for listening and watching, and please don't forget to subscribe.
And to all our medical imaging and radiation therapy professionals, be seen
And stay rad.